What is going on, community? It is TJ, aka Flash by Night. But today, we aren't keeping up with the comics. Today, we are catching up with the comics. In particular, with some of my Moon Knight comics that I have. Um, I said that I was going to do catching up with the comics and start with Dan Slott's Fantastic Four. And we'll get back to that. But I was itching to do Moon Knight, and I think I'm more into that right now. And I think that would be more interesting. Just my opinion as a big Moon Knight fan. So, the first story and first book I want to get into when we're catching up with the comics and catching up with Moon Knight is Moon Knight #1 from 2006. It stars the bottom storyline, written by Charlie Huston and art by David Finch. So this story is aptly named The Bottom because during this story we will find Moon Knight at the bottom. But first we have to start off at the top because he is doing what he likes to do, which is, break up shootouts and do all the grimy street stuff that no one else will do. He likes to do the fun stuff. And I love that 2-page spread. But in this book, it kind of starts out with Moon Knight chasing down two rival gangs, kind of having a shootout in the middle of the street. And neither gang survives, or maybe they survive, but they aren't very healthy as they survive Moon Knight's encounter. And in the meanwhile, he's giving us a monologue telling us how nobody else can do this stuff. Like Spider-Man is, Spider-Man, he handles his problems. And, the Avengers are off handling cataclysmic events, and the Fantastic Four is out handling aliens in space. But no one else is there to do the fun stuff in the streets, and that's what Moon Knight is for. He also tells us, why he wears the white costume. And basically he wears the white costume because he wants the bad guys to see him coming. Like, he really wants to strike fear into them, maybe to make them fear him more than they fear God. And he punishes people and makes them fear him. And that's kind of what Moon Knight does. On top of that, he also gets to play the hero at home, because outside of being Mark Spector, ex-mercenary, I want to say former Marine, but most Marines will tell you there are no former Marines, but dishonorably discharged Marine, I believe. Outside of that, he's also Stephen Grant, millionaire, maybe billionaire, playboy, film director, studio owner, all of that good stuff. And so he gets to come home to Marlene every night and, do Moon Knight stuff in the day, Stephen Grant stuff at night. I think you know what I'm saying. But we find out later on that he pays for all of this stuff, and he ends up being hurt, being broken, being beaten, abusing pain pills and alcohol, and basically alone. And you almost never see that in most of your superhero comic books. I said before that reading The Bottom this early in, because this was one of the first stories that I read as a comic reader, and reading The Bottom that early kind of informed me on how I think about comics and superheroes and the aftermath of what they go through. And while most books will, put the hero through the ringer, but in a couple of issues, it's like it never happened. Things are okay. We go on about our day. We're all happy-go-lucky. The Bottom tells us that that's not how things always go. That sometimes you have to pay for your heroics. You know how they say no good deed goes unpunished. No good deed goes unpunished here. And Moon Knight is basically broken and alone by the end of this book. And that's kind of how I see Moon Knight #1. Now, in the next Keeping Up with the Comics episode, or I'm sorry, Catching Up with the Comics episode, I'm going to go over issue #2, and we're going to see exactly how Moon Knight got to be a beaten and broken man. And we're also going to get a visit from one of his oldest friends, and that visit actually lets him know that he's even more alone than we think he is in this book. And that was Catching Up with Comics. And to be honest, I did this episode before. I think I showed a few too many pages because I got dinged for a copyright claim, but we did it all over again. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you learned something about Moon Knight that you didn't know. And if you did enjoy yourself, go ahead, click that like button. And if you want to keep up with me, catching up with my comics, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. As always, feel free to leave comments, especially on these back issues and older books as I start going through them. I know that the nostalgia kind of ticks a lot of people's buttons, and so I want you to enjoy it as much as I do. But as I always leave it, love yourself, love others, and I will be back in a flash.